Good morning, one and all. This is Dr. Dinah here. So, we have been dealing with data mining concepts, and we had an introduction of what data is, how raw facts are used to represent real world objects using feature value pairs. So, any real world object can be represented as a set of qualitative or quantitative values, and that can be used as an input to any data mining algorithm. So we saw how information was gathered from multiple objects and how statistics was helping us in converting data into information. And then we moved on into certain case study about the COVID, where we have understood what is the difference between data and information. Once we have information in hand, then we talk about knowledge. Knowledge is nothing but a conclusion or a pattern that you identify from the information that is given to you. So we have been understanding that, and then we moved on into methods that can help us derive knowledge from large sources of data. So that's what we understood as data mining. So these images helped us understand what exactly data mining is. We start exploring on huge data sources from which we understand certain conclusive patterns that can help in the business decision making process. So that's what we called as knowledge. And we also understood uh, the curriculum and all that. And then we looked into the perfect definition of data mining, where it says data mining is the extraction of interesting. Interestingness is defined by four aspects. The first one is how non trivial the mind knowledge is, how implicit it is, and how previously unknown it must be, and it should be potentially useful in the decision making process. Such patterns are called as knowledge, and they are extracted from huge sources of data. And we also understood that data mining is a misnomer in a way that it is wrongly named. And the alternative names or the correct names that we suggested are knowledge discovery from databases or knowledge discovery in databases. And we also started looking into what is the knowledge discovery process. The knowledge discovery process is where you combine multiple data sources from different organizations or different locations of the same organization. Then you start cleaning up of that data. Then you form a warehouse or an organized place of storage for this data, and you put it inside the data warehouse. Once you it's available in the data warehouse, we then start looking into uh, the selection of data or the process that helps us to choose task relevant data from the warehouse that we have just designed. Once the data is selected, we then apply data mining algorithms, and then you evaluate the patterns that are mined using the data mining algorithms. The pattern evaluation process is quite difficult because we measure the interestingness of the pattern using the four parameters that we have earlier mentioned. The four parameters are: it should be non-trivial, implicit, previously unknown, and potentially useful pattern. Once you have evaluated the pattern, it can be fed inside the knowledge base of the organization. So it contributes to the business intelligence or the knowledge base. Now, once I have done this process, I can select some other form of data and acquire more knowledge on different perspectives of the same organization. So, this process can be repeated as many times depending on what is the objective we are looking at. And then we also have seen that this should be done by a business analyst. So the people involved in this are the first one is a database administrator who actually integrates and cleans up the data from multiple sources. We also looked at non-conventional means of storing data apart from the usual RDBMS structures that we have. And then we moved on into data processing and summarization. Summarization and statistical analysis is done by a data analyst who is usually performing the data mining process also. And to evaluate the interestingness of the pattern that is mined, a data analyst might not be able to do that. So we looked for help from the business analyst, a person with a business perspective who can understand whether the pattern is really interesting enough for taking conclusive decisions. Then the final decision making process rests with the end user. And we also saw how machine learning can be integrated into all aspects of data mining. So we started with the pre-processing, and then we had data mining, and then you have a post-processing scenario. Now, in this session, we will look into what kind of data is used for mining. Now, what exactly are we looking for in data mining? What is the objective of using data mining? As discussed earlier, we saw the most important aspect of data mining is the knowledge that is gained from data. Earlier in business scenarios, when people start evolving their business, the business solely depends on what knowledge or experience the decision maker or the business owner has. So, if the owner is very, very wise, and if he is able to lay out strategic decisions or plans, then his business naturally flourishes. And is everybody capable of making such good decisions? Not always. But can a computer help us with the decision making process? Yes, it can. Why? How can it come? It can collect data from us. All the past data for past experience of the organization is available in the form of data. And when it is used for mining process, you can adapt, and then you can go on into creating a knowledge base for the organization, which is backed up using statistical values. So you can prove what are the decisions that have been taken earlier have proved to be good for the organization. So imagine I have implemented an operation with introducing some discounts in my organization, or some faculty perks I have introduced. Because of that, my organization was able to perform well. And if I have that past data with me, I can prove that when I introduce some offer at this point of time, whether it will work or not is known from my past. So that's why we apply data mining. So the objective of data mining is always decision making. So whatever I mine should help me with the decision making process. How do I achieve this effective decision making? What kind of data can be mined? What kind of data is, whatever data the organization has, it should be mined. So I should look at methods that can help mine different types of data. Now, these are some of the data types that can be mined. They are database oriented data sets, where it can be a relational database, or a data warehouse, or a transactional database. Now, what is a relational database? A relational database is something we have seen earlier. Imagine a billing system or a student mark system. So, you have your attendance and all your mid-semester marks being recorded, and it is available as a table format in a system. This is called as a relational database. A relational database represents different real world objects in the form of feature value pairs or in the form of a tabular structure. That's called as a relational database. It can also be a data warehouse. A data warehouse is a more organized way of storing data, or I can say some of the summaries have already been computed and then it is stored. For example, for a student, if you take what are the summaries it could be? Now, in a data warehouse, data is actually processed from a relational database and then stored into the warehouse. The warehouse can have information such as who was the student having the highest mark, what was the highest mark, department wise it may have, who was the student having the highest attendance, department wise. So you are going to analyze the relational database and then put only selective, consolidated and summarized values of a relational database in a way that I can easily access. That's called as a data warehouse. So my data source can also be a data warehouse instead of being a relational database. And the next one is a transactional database. What is a transactional database? Now imagine you have a DMart application, a point of sales or software which records all the bills of the organization. Now in that case, every bill that is generated indicates a transaction. It indicates a transactions of how many items were given to the customer and what was the money that was taken back. So that is called as a transactional database. A transactional database keeps on evolving. So every day, every moment, I have some bills added into a transactional database. Whereas a relational database and a data warehouse are not like that. A relational database is updated only once in academic year. So I have a set of students, I enter their data. So it's done once in an academic year. Whereas a data warehouse is updated after the completion of the entire academic year. Looking back at the relational database, I summarize some of the values and put it inside the warehouse. So these are different aspects of data. A transactional data keeps on changing. So the mining from transactional data requires a different perspective. I cannot use the same methods I use for mining relational databases and data warehouse. And there are certain advanced databases also. Some of them are data streams and sensor data. So imagine data stream is where it's more like you can relate it with the medical data. Imagine the ECG of a patient is being recorded using a sensor. So every microsecond, the pulse rate is being recorded and it is streamed to another device. It can be a mobile phone, it can be a virtual web server or some application that analyzes that data. This is called as a data stream. It is from the same object, but over multiple spans of time, it collects the same value. So I am going to collect only the pulse rate, but the pulse rate is collected every microsecond. Such data is called as a data stream. Data stream analysis can help us in a lot of other ways. It's mainly used in medical databases. It is also used in stock market analysis, etc. This is also called as a time series data or a temporal data. Say for example, time series is where I collect the series over a period of time. ECG, I say, is a data stream and it is collected for, say for example, 5 minutes I record the ECG. Whereas a time series data is recorded over a span of years. Multiple years I have the data recorded at different points of time. That's called as a time series data. Now a time series data, you can take weather data as time series data. Seasonal information, rains, all of these come under time series data. You can also include sequence data without a time. So if I don't include the time parameter in the stream of data, it is called as sequence data. Example is the biosequences. Now people have started understanding genetic algorithms and they have started working on gene information. This gene information is an RNA or a DNA sequence that is found in the blood cell. Now these RNA and DNA sequence, when we learn, we are able to identify some of the hereditary diseases, and people are working, genetic engineers are working on how to modify these RNA sequences so that diseases like diabetes can be prevented in the future generations. So such a data with a sequence and without a time factor is called as a sequence data. And we also have structured data, graphs, social networks and multi-linked data. Now imagine Facebook and Twitter. These data are organized in the form of a graph. So every profile in the social network is represented as a node, and you have millions of nodes, each of them connected using different links. So this graph data it requires a different kind of mining application. So I cannot use the traditional relational database to store such type of information. So I'm going to use something called as a graph or a network structure for storing that data. I need to develop certain algorithms, mining algorithms, that can help me understand data in that form. And then we have the usual object relational databases where we have been learning with SQL. Those are also there. And there are certain places where you have heterogeneous databases. Heterogeneous databases is where for the same organization, data is held in multiple forms. One of the form can be a relational database. The other could be a data stream. Imagine a BPO. A BPO has got a big set of relational database, understanding all the ticket information what the user resolves, and all of the communication that is recorded goes into stream data. So I have both types of data. One is in relational form, the other one is in a voice form. I should be able to combine this information before the mining process. So it involves a lot of heterogeneous databases also. And then we have legacy databases. Legacy always indicates something old, something that cannot be changed. When you think about mainframe systems, there are systems which have been running with heavy databases which were on the Foxborough and Pascal modes. Those databases right now we may not be able to modify their structure or export them to different form, but we still have to access those same old systems for our data. Such legacy databases are also available, so our application needs to attend to this kind of data as well. And then you have spatial and spatiotemporal data. These are all this geographic information systems where you apply on maps. So imagine a Google map. A map has some data which is spatiotemporal in nature. At this point of time, somebody has traveled to this particular location. This data is available as spatial and spatiotemporal data, and we still have not identified perfect mining methods that can work on spatiotemporal data. And then you have multimedia, voice and video. They are really tough to apply data mining algorithms on these. And then you have text databases. Text databases are large sets of documents that are available on Wikipedia and all these web pages. And it's very difficult to understand text mining, because not all text pertains to the same language, and not all texts use the formal grammatical methods of representing text. Some of them use shorthands, some of them use their own dialects. So it's very difficult to mine on text as well. So these are some of the databases, and the final and the most difficult part is the World Wide Web or the web pages. So we have enormous, or we cannot even comprehend how much of data is available on the web, and it's very difficult to mine on web data. Now, when we look at all this, the next step that we do is, once you have understood the types of data available with you, what are the patterns that can be mined from each of these types? So we will be looking into what are the different types of patterns that can be mined. Now, when we look at that, the different types of patterns depend on what is the data in hand and what is the objective of using data mining on that particular data. Now, imagine I have ECG data, and if I want to identify, I need to identify whether this patient has got some cardiovascular disease or not. So that is going to be my objective. So it's an yes or no question which should be answered using the pattern that is mined. And imagine a GIS or a spatiotemporal data. If I try to apply that, I should be able to see at what point of time what are the places visited most often. So the question or the objective of using data mining is going to change from application to application. So our mining algorithm and the pattern that is resulting from the mining algorithm is also going to change depending on the data that we have in hand. Now, when we look at that, we are going to identify how these patterns can be mined. First, we will look what are the patterns that can be mined, and then the rest of the 4 units, we will see how those patterns can be mined. Now, the first form of pattern is called as generalization. Generalization means I collect data, clean it, transform it, integrate it, and then form a organized, summarized way of presenting that data to the user. The main technology that is used for generalizing is the data cube technology, or it's also called as OLAP, Online Analytical Processing System. These systems tries to summarize data on different time scales. Imagine students' attendance. This is a very simple example. So every day I am marking attendance, but when I send it to the university, I don't send whether the student was present on a particular date or not. How do I send? I send the summary of that particular fortnight. For every fortnight, for every particular subject, I only give the total number of classes attended by the student. So I summarize for 2 weeks subject wise and send that data. This is one form of generalization, and this is repeated for every fortnight. And every fortnight when I send, the second fortnight when I send, I am not going to send only the number of classes attended in the second fortnight, but accumulative of the second and the first fortnight together. This way of summarizing is called as data cube technology or multidimensional data representation. Now, once I have represented the summary of data, it is easier for me to understand how many students have got less than 75%, at what point of time they had less than 75%, and when did the attendance improve. All of this I am able to see from that summarization. That is called as generalization principle. So the generalization principle is used for summarizing data that is already in hand, and simple statistical methods can help us with the generalization of data. So we need not go into complex data mining algorithms for achieving this. And then we have another form of data, which is data mining, which is called association and correlation analysis. Association is where I try to understand the relationship between different data objects. Now, if a student has less attendance, I want to measure if his result will be some way linked with the attendance. So I try to understand the relationship between different perspectives of the same object. Now, for the same student, can I see whether the result is related to the attendance? So when I try to understand this relationship, we generate something called as a frequent pattern. This is mainly used in market analysis, where they understand what are the items that are purchased together. Now, a typical association rule is shown here, where it indicates that people who buy diapers are buying beer. Now, there are certain numbers that have been put along with that. The diaper is called as the predecessor, and beer is called as the successor or the consequent. So everybody who does the first operation seems to do the second operation with 75% of confidence, or I can say 75% of the people who bought beer, a diaper, also bought beer. So this is the relationship between the two items, diaper and beer. The same way we can try to understand the relationship between marks and attendance, attendance and extracurricular activities. All of these are related to the object in different perspectives. I can also calculate their support and confidence values and say how much they are related to each other. Now, this form of analysis is called as association rule mining or correlation analysis. Now, in the second unit, we will discuss about how we can mine such patterns and rules effectively in very large databases. So, we will look into algorithms that can help us mine these association rules. And then we can also use these association rules in different forms of data mining. Now, the other form of data mining is called as classification. Classification is a term that we continuously keep hearing. What is classification? What can classification be? Now, classification is a problem where I try to group some objects and understand what the outcome would be. So, for every job, I label an outcome. Now I say for every student, I label the student as either good or bad. Once I have labeled that for the previous cases, I need to identify the same for unknown samples. So, okay, now this could be a challenging task. Imagine a student in the previous academic year, I have met a student whose attendance was only 35%, but still he was a very good student. That I have understood from my past, and I feed the same information into the system. I tell the system that there was a student who had 35% attendance only, but still he was good. I give this information to the system. Now, I also give the attendance percentage of multiple other students whom I have known earlier. So, a student with 99% attendance, he was good. A student with 60% attendance, he was not good. So, this information of attendance and whether the student, the outcome, whether the student was good or bad, is given to the system. Now, there are samples for whom I do not know the outcome. For such samples, I give the samples to the system. It looks into its past experiences, which I have already given it, and then says, a person with 70% attendance, will he be good or bad in the future? So, I am trying to predict some value based on my past experience. That is called as classification. So, in a classification, it is usually a prediction of the label. The label or the outcome is generally the good or the bad. So, for doing this, we usually construct some models based on some training examples. The training examples are the information that I have given to the system based on my past experience. So, a 35% attendance students being good is one of the training sample that I have given the system. Based on this, the system usually understands and it develops a model. So, when the model is developed, it just understands the pattern of behavior and it says if the student has got this much of attendance, more likely they are supposed to have a better future and all that modeling it does. And it tries to predict the outcome. Now, there are a lot of applications to this particular classification problem, because every time we are saying we want to predict the future, people are interested in it. Just like how we are trying to understand whether COVID will exist in the near future, how long will it exist? We are interested, we are curious about it. The same thing the system can do with the help of classification. So, the classification is going to help us understand the future based on our past experiences. Now, we will be dealing all about classification in Unit 3. Unit 3 will give us typical classification methods such as decision trees, naive-based classification, support vector machines, neural networks, rule-based classification, pattern-based classification, and logistic regression methods. All of these methods are dealt with in Unit 3. So, they will help us understand how we can build models and how these models can use previous training samples to predict the future outcome. And this is called as classification. The next form of data mining is called as cluster analysis. Cluster analysis is where I do not know the outcome. I cannot predict the outcome in certain cases, but I can still understand with which I am more similar to. Now, a cluster problem can be sought as a understanding of the data. Now, imagine I have a group of students with some attendance values and I do not know whether the student was good or bad in the previous academic year. In that case, how do I actually identify students? In a particular batch of students, I want to understand their learning capability and see who are all having the similar type of learning capacity. So I learn the different samples in that particular data. I do not know their outcome yet, but I can still understand how many people are similar to each other, what are their learning activities together. So this can help me deliver better lectures to the class. So this is called as cluster analysis. I am not essentially looking for an outcome, but I'm just trying to group data samples or objects together based on some objective so that it is helping me to deliver better to the particular set of objects. The last one is called as an outlier analysis. An outlier analysis is where I look at certain specific data samples which are exceptional in nature. So I have one student who has a very high knowledge, but his attendance percentage is 3. His attendance is really poor, but his performance in the exam is really good. Such an exceptional value is called as an outlier. Now these outliers, where do they actually help? Now these outliers can help me identify errors. I might have entered the data wrongly in my database and eventually turn my mining process into a mess. So I can identify errors in my database using outlier analysis. Or I can also find out what are the other reasons why the student is able, how the student is able to achieve such high performance in the examination even with less attendance. So if I do a little more analysis on that, I'll be able to motivate all the other students or find out methods by which the student is able to perform better. Such an analysis is called as outlier analysis. So this is mainly used in prediction of rare types of events. This can also be used for fraud detection. So in a lot of cyber crime analysis, outlier detection or outlier analysis is being used. Now these are the different forms of data mining. The next is called as the time ordering or sequential pattern analysis or the time series analysis. Time series analysis is mainly used for stock market analysis, weather report for forecasting. All of these are done based on time series analysis. So data is captured from time to time in equal spans of time, and that data is recorded. Then you analyze that data to see whether the same thing will happen in the future or not. So I can try to identify, predict floods, predict seasonal rains, predict the global warming, and I can also predict how much stock will have its selling price raised, and all of these come under time series analysis. So these are the forms of time series analysis. Is not included in your curriculum, but we will be using time series analysis for web mining in the last unit. So this is how these are the different types of data mining or different patterns that can be mined from data. When you look at unit 1, there are only 3 or 4 questions that can be asked for 10 marks. One is the knowledge discovery process. The other one is the types of patterns that can be mined from databases. So this is another important question. So we will just run through whatever we have seen today. This is a very important question. Well, there are 6 different types of data mining approaches. The first one is a generalization, which is more like summarization. The second one is called as the association rule mining or the correlation analysis. This tries to find out the relationship between the different features of an object, and then you go into classification. Classification is a scenario where we try to predict the future based on our past experiences, and cluster analysis is where I try to group the data which is already in hand. I may not have a class label or an outcome that has to be predicted, but based on the similarity, I try to group the data which can lead into some effective planning. And then you go in for outlier analysis, which helps us detect frauds and all that, and it is based on the analysis of rare events. And the last form of data mining is time series analysis or sequential pattern analysis. This is done on a time series data. Now, based on these samples, we can understand what are the different data mining approaches. The rest of the four units will be based on these types of data mining, and we will also look into the uh, number of algorithms that can help us do these things. Once I have identified the pattern using any of these data mining methods, I will then look into how interesting the pattern is. So we will be looking into how to evaluate the pattern that is found in the next few sessions. For now, I will stop here. I will get back to you with in the next session. I advise all of you to stay safe, and I'm hoping that all of you are doing well. Thank you for today's session. Meet you in the next. Thank you.